Here I am. Good morning. Four lovely faces. Happy Tuesday to you. So, I'm just going to mute a few people, only because, as you know, it cuts out feedback. So, I'm inspired today I'm so frequently inspired by the wonderful people, the wonderful humans that I get to work with in my life in different settings. And there's been a real theme recently. This is so interesting. This happens in my working life sometimes. It may happen to you too, where themes emerge sometimes. And by that I mean the same thing popping up in different places. Maybe it's just how the mind works and is filtering and able to draw out certain types of information. That definitely could be at play. But anyway, and it's around feedback and the power of it, or the power of what we do with it. And I have been so encouraged recently when working with people to hear the outcome of them. Well, a number of things actually. So first of all, the outcome of them having been open enough to receive feedback and then take action on it. And the willingness of these particular humans to open themselves up to hearing something not great. And what I'm talking about is, and in some of these instances, the feedback's come from me. And when I say not great, what I mean is constructive criticism or constructive feedback. So where I will have objectively observed something in the other person, and gently, because obviously it's always coming from a place of kindness and wanting to support the person in more clearly seeing themselves. They're in an exchange with me that's already has established that. So this is both in my work in the criminal justice system and my private work. And the speed of change as a result of being open to what they've received. And this always excites me. And I just wanted to share it with you in case it's relevant and in case you can identify the potential for something like this within your own life. So, for example, well, really what I suppose I'm saying is encouraging you to, if you want to, reflect on how you receive feedback from others. And what I'm talking about is well-intentioned feedback. I'm not talking about criticism. That's something else. And I won't unkind criticism for criticism's sake. That's a completely different process. And I'm not talking about that today. I think I've spoken about it briefly recently, and I may well come back to that. What I'm talking about is when somebody genuinely offers us something that might be quite hard for them to say and might be quite difficult for us to hear, but where the intention is a good one. So in my work, obviously, and I'm in a professional role, that's not to say I haven't done this with friends and family, I have. It's always well-intentioned. I'm offering something to the other person, like a gift, if you like something. It's an offering. And I always say that I'm offering this to you. What you choose to do with it is entirely up to you. But this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm noticing, this is what I'm seeing. And then that person has the opportunity to hear that, look at that, consider it, etc., etc. So I'll give you an example. This happens to me quite. I work with men in the criminal justice system, and interestingly, what I notice with them sometimes at the beginnings of the working relationship is they talk over me, and there's lots of reasons why people do that. And there's lots of reasons why men talk over women, which I won't go into now, but I do explore that with them. And chose to, and I will, as soon as I feel I've established trust with that person, that they feel safe with me, I will make this offering. So I have to pick my time. So last week I raised this with a man with whom I'm working, and he took it very well and said, "Oh yes, my partner says that." And I work with these men on the topic of healthy relationships, so it's entirely relevant. And he took it really well and was very interested in it. He owned this feedback from me, and was clearly really wanting to work on it and really wanting it to be different. And he said, but it's a lifetime's way of being. It's going to take me a long time to change this. And I said, well, this was last week. I said, you might be surprised. Once, in my experience, once we notice something and we own it, and we are aware of it, and we have a real interest in it being different, it is quite incredible sometimes how that will gain momentum in terms of shift. And I just left it like that. And this is why I'm sharing it with you, not because of the listening thing, but the process really of where it can take us when we're really open to feedback and doing something with it. And I met him again yesterday afternoon. I couldn't believe the change. We had normally I work with him in a group setting, and I had a one-to-one meeting with him. He barely interrupted me in a whole at least 45 minutes that we were engaged in the session. And it was fantastic. And of course, I fed that back to him. I said, and we were talking about lots of other things. We were reviewing our work together so far. And we touched on that. He raised it and said how useful it had been that I had fed that back. And I was able to say to him what I'd noticed yesterday, which was just so different. And I said to him, you see how this can happen sometimes when you're willing to open yourself up to something and take it on board and then do something with it, how change can occur really quite rapidly. And I say can because everyone is different and every process is different and we're all different. But I think it's a beautiful thing how quickly something can shift. And really it's that, there are those phrases, old habits die hard, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't subscribe to those. To me, they're very closed and shut down the possibility for change and shift. And which is why I had been saying to him, well, basically I was saying, just stay open to the possibility that this could change really quite quickly because of how he chose to receive it. And there's such strength in us when we are willing to acknowledge an aspect of ourselves that might not be, and this is actually quite light. I have fed back some other much more unpalatable, difficult things to accept in terms of the human condition and things that we might not really want to look at. But my point being, it's the openness to hearing something from another, and rather than becoming defensive, which is a very natural human reaction to go, what do you mean I'm not like that, and bat it back, is to go, is to bear the discomfort perhaps in the moment of hearing something that is less than positive in itself. The process, of course, can be very positive, but to be able to hear it and pause and bear the discomfort and then review it for ourselves. I like to think of it, what I quite often say to people is, hover over what you've been offered, hover over what you've heard, what you've been told, And really, as objectively as you can, consider, what can I own in that, in what's been offered? What can I recognize? What can I own in that? Maybe that you don't own all of it, but there might be something of real value for you in that to support your growth and to support your shift. So I hope that that makes sense. It's that it's these opportunities that we have, and it may be, you know, there may be somebody in your life where this already occurs, or someone, now that you're thinking about it, where you think, oh, actually they do that, but I tend to resist it. And we resist for all sorts of reasons. You know, it's usually to protect ourselves, and sometimes it's things from the past that pop up as a defense in the moment. It's the reason why we resist some feedback in the present. It could be this really supports intimacy in relationships. And what I mean is emotional intimacy, the intimacy in its broadest sense. So maybe maybe your partner sometimes offers you something, and if you have a tendency to shut down and become defensive around it, it may be, you know, that you can work on that a little bit to see if there's something you can own. And just to underline, I am not talking about accepting things that are not true. I'm not talking about unkind comments, and like I said, criticism for nastiness sake that is just delivered your way and encouraging you just to accept that. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, where it's a well-intentioned offering, that perhaps there's a tendency to be a little bit defensive around, being able just to soften a little and pause and look and see what is there. It could be a colleague, could be a friend, it could be another family member, where this process is occurring. And I've experienced all of those scenarios in my life, and noticed how noticed the gifts really for myself in those moments where I've been able just to pause and to tune into what is being offered, and checking out whether what can I own, what can I recognize in that, and then take that on board. There we are, short and sweet, as mind bites or mind nibbles they are sometimes, mind little crumbs. Short and sweet for Tuesday morning. Maybe there is something of value in there for you in terms of responding to and using feedback, and like I said, the point being that and it's not just in relation to feedback. You know, sometimes it's listening to yourself when I say feedback from others. So sometimes it's listening to yourself, and then once you notice, once you become aware, once you acknowledge, once you own, and then do something with that, how quickly sometimes a really positive shift can occur. Because what you're doing is you're unblocking a barrier, a hurdle for yourself, and allowing flow. So, lovely people, have a really good Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow morning, perhaps at 8 o'clock. Top of the shop on a Wednesday. Always a little bleary-eyed I am, and half talking to my children as they're getting ready for school and asking where things are. Bye-bye now.